Warm welcome viewers, you're watching To The Point. In our last show, we spoke about the politics of Aryan Khan's case. In the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about the legal aspect of the case. Did it ever have any legs to stand on when it came down to legality of the case, where the NCB even accused of him being an international drug trafficker, a part of a drug cartel which was international, when they opposed the bail for Aryan Khan, who spent 26 days in jail. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to get on the show the crack legal team enlisted by Shah Rukh Khan for his son. When we had them earlier, while the entire drama, the trial was going on, when Aryan was in jail for 26 days, they never commented on that. Two questions. Number one, was this a hit job by the NCB? Number two, was it that Aryan Khan was paying the price of being a superstar son? They always stuck to the legal points. Have they changed that stand today? What now? Will Aryan Khan actually sue the NCB of putting him through so much trauma when they did not have any evidence to go by? First up, I want to bring in my colleague Sahil Joshi, our Mumbai Bureau Chief, who's joining us live. Sahil, take us through. You have the charge sheet with you. Did the NCB ever have legal legs to stand on to call Aryan Khan an international drug trafficker, a part of a cartel, the fact that he was a drug addict, that he was passing on drugs to others?
Well, looking at what they themselves have said in the charge sheet, it clearly shows that Narcotics Control Bureau officials are accepting that the very basis of the whole case made out against Aryan Khan, because every time I remember, whenever the judge used to ask that why the bail should be denied, and what evidence you have to put him behind bars that there are no drugs found on him, they used to always come up with some kind of a WhatsApp chat and show to the judge and say, this is what we are investigating. We want to understand whether the international drug trafficking racket is involved in that. And now they themselves are saying that WhatsApp chats are not accepted as a evidentiary material mentioned by the Supreme Court itself. Then why people were being called only on the basis of WhatsApp chats? The charge sheet also mentions that the mobile phone, which apparently the Narcotics Control Bureau the first day said that they have confiscated from Aryan Khan. Then now it appears that Aryan Khan was asked to give the mobile phone. He handed over the mobile phone, and the procedure of seizing that mobile phone was not followed at all. So it was all happening through illegal means. And during the investigation, nobody questioned it. There was no way that one can understand whether a mobile phone has been seized as per the procedure or it has not been seized under the procedure. Every time the Narcotics Control Bureau goes before the magistrate to file the remand application, they have to submit the Panchanama and the other papers as well. Nobody looked into it. So there is a clear-cut lapse, what we can see at this point of time. A person has had to spend 26 days inside the jail. And now please understand, Aryan Khan had all the legal advice he can afford, the best of the legal advice they can afford. Mukul Rohatgi, a person like Mukul Rohatgi flew down from Delhi to appear for him in the Bombay High Court. Think about the people who do not have those kind of means, what kind of things they will have to face if they are arrested under stringent laws under NDPS Act. So this is going to be a really serious case, and what we have seen in past a few months is that under the NDPS Act, who's who in Bombay's, Mumbai's film industry were called in. They were paraded in front of the Narcotics Control Bureau office, for non-commercial quantity of the drugs apparently seized from their houses. After some point of time, it was realized that that substance was not even a narcotic substance. So these kind of things were happening. Nobody intervened, especially in the Aryan Khan case, only because a minister from the Maharashtra government took the press conference, and with the help of equipped with the the presentation in which he could able to show that a particular witness who is supposed to be independent and clean witness is involved in the cases like duping people, and that is how the case, everybody started raising questions over the case, and finally the Narcotics Control Bureau officials understood that there is some kind of a problem in the case, and that's how they took out the case from the Bombay office, Bombay zonal office, to a special SIT formed by the Narcotics Control Bureau's head office. So definitely there were many lacunas. It has been clearly mentioned in the charge sheet that the investigating officer was trying to implicate Aryan Khan. He was looking for an opportunity to implicate Aryan Khan. So obviously there has to be some kind of a conspiracy to arrest Aryan Khan and one of the independent witness who died a few days back, Prabhakar Sahil, while speaking to India Today. India Today broke that story, and he had specifically mentioned that how they were demanding money for the release of Aryan Khan. So, it is a serious offence.
Sahil, before I move on, we have Mukul Rohatgi who's joining us live in 30 seconds. I want to quickly ask you, what now? Does this case end now? Also, what action could be taken against Samir Wankhede? Because if clearly it mentions that the man in charge, who was Samir Wankhede, was trying to, build a case against Aryan Khan which had no legal legs, now what?
Well, the departmental inquiry is basically to show that there are procedural lapses. But what one can clearly see, that when the word like implication comes into the charge sheet, that investigating officer was trying to implicate Aryan Khan, then it becomes a serious charge. So obviously the investigation should not actually be only the departmental, but there can, it can have more repercussions as well. But what we saw, that Mumbai police did not get into the criminal conspiracy of that. Nobody came forward to give the statement to Mumbai police that yes, the money was demanded. So, we'll have to wait and see that what happens in this case as well.
Okay, Sahil, I'm going to appreciate you taking the time out and joining us. I'm going to come back to you, my colleague Sahil, our Mumbai bureau chief, and his team on top of the story which we are tracking very closely here. We did speak to Samir Wankhede, clearly, who now his name has been mentioned in the charge sheet as someone who was trying to implicate Aryan Khan in a drug charge. Will action be taken against him? Well, Samir Wankhede, when we spoke with him, said no comments. But I want to now cut across to Mukul Rohatgi. He was one of the lawyers who defended Aryan Khan. Mr. Rohatgi, appreciated, sir, that you've taken the time out to join us. You represented Aryan Khan. You argued for him that he was innocent. What does today's clean sheet mean to the legal team?
See, personally, I am very relieved that the truth has come out, to the effect that there is no material against Aryan Khan at all to prosecute him, which means that his honor is vindicated, and our stand in the court at the time of bail is also vindicated, that there were no drugs on him, he was not carrying drugs, he had not had any drugs. That's what I think is my first impression today.
Mr. Rohatgi, what, as per you, you feel have been the biggest lapses where the Narcotics Bureau is concerned?
See, the basic lapse was that they acted in haste. Before you arrest a person, you must have reasonable and credible grounds to believe that a person has committed a crime. In this case, it is about drugs. So one should have drugs on one's person. One should have had drugs, otherwise, little before you are arrested, or something like that. That's the only thing which is relevant in a case of drugs. Now, there was nothing. And maybe because of the media glare and everybody was looking at this case, maybe the officer concerned thought that if he didn't arrest, people would say, oh, he's a big man and therefore the authorities didn't act. So sometimes it's a case of an overkill. I think that's the kind of thing which happened. They did not act maturely at the relevant time. They arrested first and then started thinking later.
So you said they did not
act. The person of his liberty. Liberty is the most essential part of our constitution. But unfortunately, as I speak, it happens every day in hundreds of cases, thousands of cases under various laws, because there are several prosecution agencies. I mean, I would appeal to the prosecution agencies across the spectrum to think maturely, weigh the facts, and then go for arrest, which is as a measure of last resort under the law, and not as a measure of first resort just because there is power of arrest.
So you've made a very pertinent point, a point that many of us are mulling today, that if this can happen to Shah Rukh Khan's son, what about the common man out there? But you talk about that they lacked maturity. Something more sinister, Mr. Rohatgi, has been said in the charge sheet, which is made by the NCB, where it comes down to the indictment of Samir Wankhede, where the charge sheet says Samir Wankhede tried to implicate is the operative word, Shah Rukh Khan's son, Aryan Khan, in this. Should action be taken against Samir Wankhede, sir?
No, madam, I don't think this clamor is kind of well-founded. I don't know Mr. Wankhede. I don't know what role he had to play. And I mean, it's not a case of retribution that we are dealing with. I hope it was a genuine mistake of arrest, and that mistake has been remedied by the department admitting that they kind of made a mistake.
Mr. Rohatgi, you know, at the time when the trial was going on, when Aryan was in jail, I remember speaking with you, and you had at that point of time said that, you know, Aryan's, got nerves of steel. His father, Shah Rukh Khan, has, been quietly in the background studying, pretty much studying law to assist his son. Have you spoken to Aryan or Shah Rukh Khan?
No, madam, I have not been able to speak to the family. But my answer to your other question is that whether it is NCB or anybody, any other prosecuting agencies, they must act properly, maturely and responsibly before arresting any person, much less a young man or an old man, because, see, liberty is equally important for a young man or an old man. That doesn't matter. But the only difference is in the case of a young mind, it's an impressionable age. And if you arrest people of young ages, put them in jail where they have to intermingle with hardened criminals, that may leave a lasting psychological impact on the mind of a youngster. That must be avoided at all costs.
Appreciate you joining us, Mr. Rohatgi. Mr. Rohatgi, you were working with Ryan Karanjewala and his entire legal crack team. Ryan Karanjewala now joins us live. Appreciate you joining us, Mr. Rohatgi. You have a good evening. Mr. Karanjewala, welcome. Thank you for taking out the time and joining us today. I want you, sir, for the benefit of our viewers, encapsulate the whole process from the arrest to the clean chit, where there has been no charge sheet which has been made out where Aryan Khan is concerned. But in the charge sheet that NCB has built, it pretty much gives Aryan a complete clean chit where it says that the investigating officer was trying to implicate him.
While we're happy and while we're relieved, we're not at all surprised. Because on day one, I had said that Aryan Khan is an innocent person sought to be made guilty. And what we based our whole say-so in those days was on the simple fact that there was no evidence found on him whatsoever. This was not a case of insufficient evidence. This was a case of no evidence whatsoever. No drugs were found on his possession. No medical examination was led to show that he had ever consumed any such drugs. All that was relied upon was that someone in the neighborhood possessed drugs. And we pointed out then and we point out now that this can never be a case of conscious consumption, which is what they wanted to say. Because, for example, the example that I had given then, and we had given in different ways in court also, was that take the case of a Bharati. When the Bharat comes in, if one or two people in the Bharat are found to be in possession of a banned substance, does it mean that the groom is implicated? So that was our whole case, and it's ultimately been proved to be correct. What we said today, what we said 8 months ago, the NCB says today.
You know, sir, the fact is that the NCB made some very, very preposterous claim. They look preposterous right now because they're completely unfounded and true, because now the NCB says that there is no evidence. Claim one, where they say that, his drugs were with his friend, he was taking drugs, he was a drug addict. They say that he was part of an international drug cartel, drug trafficking, on the basis of what? WhatsApp chats. That is, every time his bail plea came up for hearing, they stalled the bail, opposed it by saying all of these things.
So we feel the same way that we felt then, and we see it the same way we said. We said on that day also, this was not a case of consumption at all. This was not a case of possession at all. And we totally thrashed the concept of an international conspiracy then. We're only glad that today the NCB agrees with us. That's all.
Mr. Karanjwala, you know, your client, Aryan Khan, spent 26 days in jail, faced public humiliation, a very, very public trial, social ostracization, the kind of stuff that went down in print on Aryan Khan was, you know, cruel to go by, where a young man who's just out of college is concerned. Do you think the Khan family and Aryan Khan should take the NCB to court?
Oh, he certainly went through a lot, because I remember saying to somebody else, you know, post the bail, my wife and I had gone to Shah Rukh Khan's house for lunch. He just called us just to thank us, in a sense, for being with him through those days. So you could clearly make out the amount of harassment and stress the family was under. And while both the men, Shah Rukh and Aryan, tried to be brave and sort of, you know, face things and try to sort of inject humor into the afternoon and things like that, both the women were totally distraught, both the daughter and the wife.
You know, I'll ask that question again, Mr. Karanjwala. Do you, see that it was a hit job by the NCB, and should action be taken against the NCB where legal recourse by the Khan family is concerned?
See, frankly, I don't want to get into that argument. I don't want to get into a situation where I'm giving my views on what the NCB did or did not do. And even in court, I want to point out that our counsels only stuck to the facts when they argued it. This issue was not discussed. This issue was not highlighted in any way. And I'm not going to deviate on TV from the way the counsels argued in court.
Well, sir, those are questions which would be asked. But I will also ask you, you pointed out earlier when, in our other question, where you went to see the Khan family, where both the men, Shah Rukh Khan and his son, were stronger. The women were very badly affected. They were crying. But as Shah Rukh Khan's concerned, because I remember, sir, you were on our channel earlier while the trial was going on, while Aryan Khan was in jail, and you spoke about at length of Shah Rukh Khan in person assisting his son, where he was actually reading the law to know the law better and to be able to assist you. Did that really happen?
So I must tell you very frankly that as far as the case was concerned, it was conducted by two partners of ours who went down to Bombay, namely Sandeep Kapoor and Ruby Ahuja. And their involvement with and interaction with Shah Rukh Khan was quite extensive and in detail. And both their impressions were, which is also common knowledge, that A, he's a man of very high levels of intelligence. That is what Mukul also said all throughout when I spoke to Mukul about him. And he's a man who always sort of dealt with the aspect of how to solve the problem rather than just sit and complain about it. And he's a very level-headed person in his reactions. So even I remember Mukul saying that, and when he spoke in conferences, he was always level-headed, never hysterical, never over the top, always calm, always collected, always just right, if you know what I mean.
Mr. Karanjwala, the kind of case that the NCB built, what does it say about the NCB? If this can happen to a superstar's son, what about the common man, sir?
See, I have always felt that institutions like the NCB should really be concentrating on dealing with drug syndicates and the crime at a larger level, rather than try to individually pick on individuals, whether well-known or not well. I mean, I think their purpose would be better served if they had sort of, they put their focus on the drug peddlers, the drug lords, and so on.
Mr. Karanjwala, it's a good day for the Khans. I hear it's also the birthday of their youngest son, Abram. So good news has come calling. Have you been able to speak to them today after the clean sheet?
No, I haven't even tried. I sent them a message and just to congratulate them, and I congratulate Shah Rukh, and he thanked us. That's it.
Mr. Aryan Karanjwala, thank you, sir. Appreciate it, taking the time out and joining us this evening. You have a very good evening ahead and a fabulous weekend. With that, I'm going to close the show. Because once again, when it came down legally, the NCB never had a case. And that has been admitted by the NCB today in the charge sheet where the NCB says the operative word that the investigating officer in question, Samir Wankhede, tried to implicate is the operative word, Aryan Khan in this drug case. A clean chit for Aryan Khan. We're going to go into a quick break. To stay with us. On the other side is Rahul Kamal, and he joins us from Davos.